Pepsi is one of the largest soft drink brands in the United States, coming second only to Coca-Cola. And while these two companies originated just 6 years apart from each other, they would take vastly different paths to grow into the behemoth corporations they are today, with Pepsi having financial troubles constantly in its early days. From the drink's inception as Brad's drink, acting as an aid to indigestion and being sold in pharmacies, to becoming a world-renowned brand, Pepsi has had more than its fair share of ups and downs, yet seemed fated to live on, whether its founder would have liked it or not, because the Pepsi you drink today is nothing like the original. This is Learn Something New. Born in 1867, Caleb Bradham grew up in Dublin County, North Carolina, and enrolled in 1886 at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He later studied at the University of Maryland in the hopes of becoming a doctor, but when his father declared bankruptcy, funds soon ran out, and Bradham left medical school. After he returned to North Carolina, he never lost an interest in healthcare. He taught briefly at a private academy in New Bern before enrolling again at the University of Maryland, this time in the School of Pharmacy, still hoping to eventually become a doctor. Shortly after graduating, he obtained his pharmacist license, opening up his own drugstore in New Bern and calling it Bradham's Drug Company. He wanted to bring a certain atmosphere to his pharmacy that might be unfamiliar to us now, but fit right in at the time, setting up a jukebox and having a soda fountain so the place could serve a social role as well as a medical one. It was at the soda fountain, however, that he found his fortune. Starting in 1893, Bradham began to experiment on soft drinks, eventually coming up with a recipe of his own, using a mixture of cola nut extract, vanilla, sugar, nutmeg, lemon oil, and other additives. People around New Bern loved the new drink, insisting he call it Brad's drink. And this was just 6 years after Dr. John Pemberton created a tonic that he believed would cure ailments, which would go on to be called Coca-Cola. As it turns out, the belief that their soft drink could cure people was a shared belief between the two men of medicine. However, unlike Pemberton's Coca-Cola's cocaine, and many other soft drinks at the time which contained various drugs, Bradham, somewhat ironically considering his role as a pharmacist, was against putting drugs of any kind into his mixture, instead preferring to rely on juices, syrups, spices, and extracts. It wasn't long before Brad's drink was the talk of the town, and because of this increased demand, he decided to put all his time and effort into mastering the drink's formula and selling it. Bradham figured that Brad's drink wasn't going to work for the soda long term, instead wanting something that would help convey the benefits of the drink for those that consumed it. And there was only one name that made sense to the budding entrepreneur. You see, nearing the end of the 1800s, the American diet consisted heavily of meat and potatoes, though it was often accompanied by heavy sweets, mainly cakes and pies. So much so that dyspepsia, or chronic indigestion, became incredibly commonplace among Americans. As the 1800s were coming to a close, it was already being referred to as America's national disease. It was known at the time that pepsin, a digestive enzyme, was known to help aid in digestion, and so Bradham adopted the name Pepsi Cola, despite the drink never actually containing any pepsin. That didn't stop Caleb from claiming that there was a guarantee of your stomach ache dissipating or your money back. Just 4 years after the name change, he founded Pepsi Cola in 1902, becoming its first president and even registering one of the very first trademarks ever with the US Patent Office. His focus was always around marketing the soda for its health benefits, constantly advertising Pepsi Cola, the original pure food drink, which, since purity was somewhat of a controversial issue at the time, the government had a problem with it. At least until 1906, when they determined that it was okay since the product had no harmful substances in it, unlike many others at the time, which you can learn more about here in my video about the poison foods of the late 19th century and the people that fought to make them healthier. Pepsi Cola was a huge success for Caleb Bradham in the first years of its appearance. Because of the increased demand, he decided to open the first bottling franchises in Charlotte and Durham. He created many new opportunities and jobs for the people in the area. He even decided to sell franchises. In 1905, there were only 2 manufacturing sites. By 1910, there were already 300 bottlers operating in 24 states in America. In addition to this, the Pepsi Cola Bottlers Convention was going on in New Bern, where they had opened the headquarters. It turned out that Caleb Bradham was a truly good businessman and advertiser too. He started using women and celebrities in his campaign to emphasize the drink's qualities. The Pepsi Cola company was also becoming the first to use motor for transport and the shipping process. And while everything seemed to be going really well for Pepsi Cola, it wouldn't be long before that all came crashing down. World War I, as it would turn out, would cost Bradham greatly. In 1915, things were still going well. The soft drink was sold across the Southeast and netted $31,346. But when the United States entered into the war in 1917 and rationed sugar, Pepsi Cola production and sales plummeted. Sugar rationing prevented Bradham's company from meeting the high demand, so he used sugar substitutes that ultimately disappointed the customers. To show how bad it got, at the start of the war, sugar was costing Bradham just 3 cents per pound. After the war, the cost rocketed approximately 830% to 28 cents per pound. Customers, however, were still expecting a bottle of Pepsi Cola to cost just 5 cents. As a result, Bradham and Pepsi Cola Company could not cover the costs of production. And in 1923, Pepsi Cola declared bankruptcy. Still concerned with people's health, however, Bradham returned to his drugstore in New Bern as a full-time pharmacist, while Coca-Cola meanwhile was being recognized as an international brand. And so ends the tale of Caleb Bradham and his failed Pepsi Cola drink. But although Bradham's time with the soda had concluded, it wouldn't be the end of the brand. When he declared bankruptcy, he sold off the company's assets to creditors who took ownership of the company's trademark, patents, and other assets for just $30,000. That summer, a New York investment broker, Roy McGargle, decided that there might be a future for the product, buying Pepsi Cola off the creditors for $35,000. With full control of Pepsi, McGargle was determined to turn the company into the behemoth he believed it could be. And then, the Great Depression hit. Despite his efforts, the newly renamed National Pepsi Cola Corporation declared bankruptcy again. But fortunately for Bradham's legacy, another man was willing to take a chance on it. Charles Guth was the owner of a candy company until 1929, when he sold it off to Loft Incorporated for about $600,000 in Loft stock. And as the Great Depression hit, Guth was becoming frustrated with Loft, eventually using his $600,000 worth of stock to take control of the company. And one of the things that bugged him most about the company was their relationship with a key supplier, Coca-Cola. Looking for an alternative, he came across the bankrupt Pepsi Cola, buying the goodwill, trademark, and business of Pepsi for a mere $10,500. Guth shortly after got rid of McGargle and owned 91% of the company personally. He didn't even like the taste of the soda, so he changed the recipe of the soda multiple times until he thought it was good, although tasting nothing like Bradham's original drink. And it was this version of the company that would go on to merge with Frito-Lay, while later acquiring Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC, becoming one of the largest restaurant organizations in the world before spinning them off into a restaurant business known as Tricon Global Restaurants, later renamed Yum Brands. Despite its rocky history, PepsiCo has gone on to become the second largest food and drink company in the world. Though what's unclear is how Caleb Bradham would have felt seeing what became of his original pure food drink. Thanks for watching Learn Something New. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. And as always, I will see you in the next one.